right, my renowned fam, welcome back to the podcast. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. Like, I got in a little tiff online today with a dude, and so I'm kind of flustered, but it's okay because I got a fellow CEO here with me today, Richard Triggs. Um, he specializes in mid-level management to executive level recruiting, and I am totally relying on you, Richard, to carry the momentum of this podcast today because I am still so insanely pissed off that I don't like, bro. What? So anyway, Richard, introduce yourself so I can shut up.
Oh, well, firstly, Stephen, I think given your military background, you're probably the last person that I would want to piss off. But so I'm happy to for you to vent to me as much as you'd like to. So look, firstly, fantastic to be here, and I've really been looking forward. We had a chat, I think, maybe even over a month ago, and I was excited about being here. So it's great to finally make it happen. Richard Triggs is my name. I'm based in Brisbane, Australia. And I own a company called Arete Executive. Arete, Arete. It's a Greek word. It means the fulfillment of one's full potential. And we're an executive headhunter. So organizations retain us to go out and essentially headhunt senior leaders from their competitors and like industry. And we work predominantly in Australia, although one of the silver linings of the COVID cloud was that, of course, now we're all very comfortable communicating on Zoom and Teams and so on, as Stephen, you and I are today. We actually are fairly regularly now being engaged by American companies to headhunt Americans in America for jobs in America. And, that would have never have happened pre-COVID, but now it's becoming quite commonplace, and it's quite a fascinating to see how the world has changed so much. So that's my business. And as you said, we work across pretty much all industries, from mid-level leader roles right through to CEO and board directors. And we've been in business now for 15 years, and it keeps me off the streets, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's the important part, right? It keeps us off the street. So I mean, I think the first thing I want to talk about. So first of all, love the Australian people. Hate the continent. You will not catch me stepping foot on Australian soil because I've lived enough of my life with things and people trying to kill me. Everything in Australia is literally designed to kill you. I am okay. I can dodge bullets. I'm not trying to dodge jellyfish, snakes, spiders, kangaroos, koalas. What else is out there that y'all got?
Look, I think we've got the lot. We've got the lot.
So I mean, anyway, but no, I love, one of the things I love about Australia is I worked quite a bit with the Australian military, and you talk about some true professionals when it comes to being soldiers. They are amazing. And I know the Australian military, even though it's significantly smaller than the United States, they work very similar to the way we do. So what advice, not just to the Australian service members, what advice would you give to American service members? Because I know getting out of the service, like, we get headhunters a lot approach us, but we're really scared for some reason of headhunters. And I think it's I don't know if there's some like sort of stigma, but we always try to steer away from them, if that makes sense. What advice would you give to service members retiring from the military? Because I think you would agree, they come with a very unique set of skills that will serve any company they go to, hand over fist.
Look, I think it's an excellent question, and certainly in Australia, there can be a bit of a stigma that somebody who has worked in a military career, whether that's for, a short term or a long term, that the skills that they develop in the military are not very transferable into a corporate environment. And also the style of leadership and management and so on within a military environment doesn't translate into a corporate environment. So as a result of that, there are a lot of employers and particularly recruiters who would negatively judge service people in comparison with people from a more traditional corporate background. And one of the things I say, and which we'll get into in more detail, but if you assume that there is an ad that's been run by a recruiter for a role and there are 200 applicants, because recruiters are lazy and stupid, and I say that knowing that I am a recruiter, recruiters just want to put the squarest peg into the hole, get paid and moved on. So if they're looking at candidates who are from a corporate background, who are square pegs, they've done it before, they've done it well, etc., and then applicants are also presenting who come from a military background, it can often be very difficult for the military person to get true consideration, not because they're not a quality individual or have a good skill set, because there are other applicants who are more aligned, and so the recruiter just takes the easy path. So I wrote a book a few years ago. It's called Uncover the Hidden Job Market. And what that really is about how do you access opportunities, off-market opportunities. And the same thing that I would say to corporate people, I would say is even more relevant to people coming out of the military. At least 80% of jobs aren't advertised. They're not in the open job market. They don't get to recruiters. They're filled through the hidden job market. What does that mean? That means that when employers see somebody that can solve their problems and take away their pain, they'll hire them even if they don't have a vacancy. So what my emphasis that when I'm talking to people about managing their own job search process is, if you want to get access to those 80% of jobs, you have to get in front of the employer before the employer knows that they need you. And so I do talk regularly with people who are coming out of the military. And what my recommendation to them is to think about who are the companies that they would like to work for. Within those businesses, who is the key decision maker that would make a hiring decision? Now, that is not HR or internal talent acquisition, right? They have a very tactical orientation. You want to get in front of the strategic decision maker. So let's say, for example, you've worked in the military predominantly in a supply chain related role. So you might want to look at an organization to see who is the head of supply chain. Now, the fantastic thing about LinkedIn is that most people, I'd say probably 98, if not 99% of white collar executives now have a LinkedIn profile. So it's very easy to identify who the person is. Once you've identified them, it's very easy to reach out to them with a connection request and then send them a message saying, look, I'm really hoping you can help me, please. I've just left the military. I'm really looking to move my career into the corporate environment. I'd really appreciate it if I could have 15 minutes of your time to offer me any advice about where the right opportunities might be for me. And to go out and do that a lot. So, out there and basically saying, I'd like to have this meeting with you. And once you're in front of the key decision maker and you can understand their pain points and you can demonstrate to them from your military experience that you've got relevant key achievements and transferable skills, they will hire you. In fact, my own personal experience of working people who've come out of the military is that their project management skills are exemplary. Their leadership skills are exemplary. They have tremendous attributes that they can bring into organizations. Unfortunately, when they're competing in an open job environment and they're dealing with idiot recruiters, and I regularly say I wouldn't trust 98% of recruiters to walk my dog, it's very hard for them to get the level of consideration. So it doesn't surprise me that the people say, look, we're skeptical about these headhunters. We are, our experience has been that we are treated like a commodity. We're not given appropriate consideration. And for a whole heap of reasons, not only ex-military, but I'd say candidates in general find the whole recruitment process very underwhelming. and quite rightly. So, a long-winded answer to your question, for these people, what's my advice to them? Go to the employer directly. Don't worry about the recruiters. Don't worry. I mean, I'm not saying don't apply for jobs. Of course, you should still do that, but don't only do that. If you can get out and you can shake hands and kiss babies with the right people, you'll be amazed how quickly you can create the opportunity for yourself.
That's great advice. And I absolutely agree. It's, I can't tell you how many times I've heard, like, you know, we would love to hire you, but this isn't, we don't run things like the military here. And it's like, look, dude, leadership is leadership. Like, I don't care if it's military leadership, firefighter, police, corporate, McDonald's. Leadership is leadership. It translates all the same. Problem solving translates all the same. And you want to talk about great problem solvers? Like, service members are great freaking problem solvers for the most part. I mean, everybody has bad apples, but we learn to problem solve like champs. You want someone that's going to find the most efficient way to get a task done? That is us 100%. You know why? Because in the corporate world, on a daily basis, you don't have to go do things like um, pick up rocks out of the ditch. And I'm not kidding, literally pull weeds along a fence line, right? Because the army's too cheap to buy weed eaters. So I mean, literally, like, we find the easiest, most efficient ways to do menial tasks and problem solve these things because we're faced with them on a daily basis. Anyway, my point is, like, I hear that, or I heard that all the time. Like, you don't quite fit what we're looking for. We don't do things like the military or whatever the case is. So that's a very good point. The second amazing point you made, and I'm going to echo it, is you have got to network, right? And I think so two things. One, someone, a good friend of mine named David Nordell. He was a Air Force senior master chief or whatever they call. I don't know. Air Force rank's super weird. Anyway, he was top rank and top brass in the Air Force, and I asked him one time. I was like, what advice would you give a service member getting out? And he's like, ignore everything the other service members said about getting out because they have no clue about anything outside of the military. I didn't realize, I didn't know my network was zero outside of the military when I left. Zero, dude. Like, I had no network at all. Network is so important. Like, you have got to network. So if you're retiring, looking at retiring, thinking about it, whatever, start thinking about building that LinkedIn network, even if you still got another 5, 6, 7 years left of service. Like, go ahead and start that process now because it's going to help you so much. Like Richard just said, because 80% of the jobs are filled off of network, right? They don't even hit the job market. So that is great advice. Now, I think it's so funny you're dogging on on the recruiting process in general. It's always funny. Just out of curiosity, if you could change one thing about the recruiting industry, what would it be?
Uh, only one. Well, I suppose uh, if you look at any other industry, whether you're and I'm talking about the service industry, whether you're an architect or an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant, you need to complete a qualification. You need to have ongoing accreditation. You need to commit to learning and upskilling as part of your. So, for example, if you want to be a chartered accountant, in order to secure that qualification and remain a qualified chartered accountant or certified practicing accountant here in Australia, there are things you have to do. In the recruiting industry, any idiot can call themselves a recruiter. There's no qualification. There's no accreditation. There's no barrier to entry. Literally, you print a business card and say you're a recruiter, and you are. A lot of the recruitment companies blue sky people come and be a recruiter. Oh, it's so amazing. Oh, you'll change people's lives and help them to get jobs, and you'll earn so much money. And so these people come into recruiting. I think the statistic is something like, I can't recall if I think it's 90% of people who join the recruiting industry leave within 2 years, never to return. Why? Because let's say somebody's a lawyer and they go, you know what, I'm a bit sick and tired of being a lawyer. So a recruitment company says, oh, why don't you come and be a recruiter of lawyers? You know, that'd be awesome. But what they don't realize, or what they don't truly communicate, is that being in recruitment is a sales job. I'm selling a company on why I should recruit for them. I'm selling a candidate on why they should consider my client as an employer. I'm selling the client on why they should hire my candidate. It's sales. I don't even regard recruitment as human resources. Okay, yes, we're in the human space, but really, it's not human resources. So, what if I could change one thing about the recruiting industry, it would be to actually put in place a formal qualification or accreditation process to remove, as many of these 98% of recruiters who I wouldn't trust to walk my dog. And then, the next sort of flow on from that is that organizations now, because they LinkedIn and LinkedIn recruiter licenses, they believe that they can do a lot more recruitment in-house. What they then do is they hire recruiters to go and work directly for the company, believing that they'll save a lot of money. But in-house recruitment, and I get in a lot of trouble for saying this, in-house recruitment is where crap recruiters go to die. If you're a quality external recruiter and you can make a lot of money, why on earth would you go in-house? Well, you wouldn't. So the only people who go in-house are the people who have failed as an external recruiter. And so what we're seeing is organizations are building these internal recruitment teams who are bringing a lot of poor habits and a lot of, they're just not good recruiters. And then the employer says to the recruiter, where's my short list of candidates? And the recruiter says, oh, sorry, boss, it's a war for talent, right? I've just written a new book. It's called The War for Talent. The war for talent is actually a myth. There's no war for talent. There's just that some companies are good at hiring and most companies are not good at hiring. So if you think that the fact that your internal recruitment team or your external recruiter is unable to present you quality of talent, it's because, of some external factor, this war for talent, well, it's rubbish. They are not providing you with quality talent because they're not good at their job. Going back to that military situation, if you are in a conflict, you want to have excellently trained soldiers who are given every possible tool in order to succeed at their job, and then you expect them to succeed. Well, the recruitment industry is populated by untrained people with crap tools who they don't really care. And that's why we have this situation, which is very unfortunate, but is what candidates and employers are facing every day.
Just keep in mind, Richard, I assume, and I know you should never assume, but I think it's a safe assumption that the Australian military works the exact same way as the United States military does, and all our equipment and gear and everything are made by the lowest bidder. So just keep that in mind when you think about us working with the best equipment we can, because a lot of times we go buy our own. So we can operate.
You go and buy your own. What I suppose I hear your point, and if that's the case, then how can you expect somebody to perform at their best if you're not equipping them accordingly? And if there's an assumption that they will go and equip themselves, well, that's not very sustainable.
No, 100% agree. It is what it is. It's the monster we fight. I don't agree with it. it is what it is, and that's
Sure.
probably the way it's always going to be. It's probably the way it always has been. I don't know. Well, I definitely agree though. Give us better gear and we'll produce better results. But so you said most companies are bad at hiring. What makes a company good at hiring?
Okay. Well, I think firstly, are you building a brand as an employer of choice? Prior even to hiring, why would people want to go and work for you? And does your company website and the LinkedIn profiles of your leaders reflect that? So again, having recently written this book, Winning the War for Talent, if I went and looked at, in Australia, we call them the ASX top 100. In the US, they might call them the Fortune 500. So if I looked at the websites of the top 20 companies in Australia, the top 20 listed companies, their websites are absolutely fantastic in terms of promoting their products and services to their customers. They're very much focused around the customer experience. But if you are saying that your greatest asset is your people, then surely you'd want your website to really promote and reflect you as an employer of choice. So great companies who are good at hiring are doing that. You know, they're putting energy into being loud and proud about the culture of the business and the types of people who work for them and the success stories that they have, etc. And then if you look at the LinkedIn profiles, most senior leaders, their LinkedIn profiles are at best just a summary of their career history. There's no content, there's nothing there to really inspire somebody to want to work for you. People want to work for people that they feel will mentor them and develop them to achieve their full potential. So on great hirers would say, and again, anytime anybody's engaging with somebody now in a professional context, more likely than not, they're looking at the LinkedIn profile, whether it's a future employer, employee, supplier, contractor, customer, joint venture party, whatever. We're all looking at LinkedIn profiles. So you want your LinkedIn profile to reflect as best as possible, why are you awesome? So again, as an employer, sharing success stories about not only your own career, but the people that work in your team, appearing on podcasts, writing blogs, getting testimonials from your employees, maybe having a YouTube channel which talks about, what a great employer you are. These are all things that you can do to build your brand so that a prospective candidate coming into your community or coming within a touch point are going to go, wow, I'd love to work for Stephen. Look at what he's achieved in his business. Look at the testimonials. Look at the kind of people that he's working with. Look at all of these things. He is an inspiring dude. I would like him to be my boss, right? Simple to do. Very, very few people do it. Not expensive. If you think about the advertising budgets that these companies spend on one ad at the Super Bowl, for a fraction of that money, to have somebody come in and make sure that all of the senior leaders' LinkedIn profiles are awesome and make sure that there's stuff on the website to really attract great people, a no-brainer, right? Secondly, when you come to hire, become very clear about what is it that you want. We use a recruitment methodology developed by an American named Lou Adler. It's called performance-based hiring. And fundamentally, the best predictor of future performance is past performance. If you can find somebody who's done it before, they've done it well, and they're motivated to do it again, they're much more likely to be successful. So what often happens, particularly a senior leader will delegate recruitment responsibility either to a third-party recruiter or to an internal recruiter, and they'll give them a position description, which is largely a bunch of motherhood statements. But they don't actually take the time to say, what does success look like in the role? If we were doing Mary's performance review in 3 months, what would she have needed to achieve for us to be delighted we hired her? What does she need to achieve in the next 3 months, in the first 12 months? People like to do what they're good at. And so in order to attract people, you need to be able to very clearly articulate, we want you to do this. And secondly, once somebody comes into the interview process, then you want to interview them to look for evidence that they've done it before, they've done it well, and they're motivated to do it again. Or they have relevant transferable skills, like the military example we discussed earlier. The number one thing that most employers do very badly, and I get on a bit of a high horse about it, is you have these internal recruiters writing ads, putting them on a job board, and not putting their name and phone number on the ad, right? In Australia now, I would say at least 95% of ads on job boards from employers do not have somebody's name and phone number. So if you imagine a really good candidate who's not actively looking for a new job, but they see your ad and they go, oh, that role looks kind of interesting, but it doesn't give me enough detail to know whether I want to apply. What I'd like to do is to ring up and ask some questions to determine whether I'm going to apply. Oh, there's nobody's name or phone number to ring, therefore I won't apply. So if you're not putting your name and phone number on ads, you are absolutely reducing the pool of talent, and you are probably missing out on excellent people that would have applied otherwise. Now, recently on LinkedIn, I do every now and then, I put a post up and I call it Rant of an Executive Recruiter. And it's kind of like me throwing out a hand grenade, because I love to chuck out the occasional hand grenade and see what happens. So I wrote a post about this, saying to my internal recruiter colleagues, why are you not putting your name and phone number on, and recognize that it is costing you? And I probably had about 80 responses, of which 78 of those were from senior executives who responded saying, Richard, you're absolutely correct. If I see an ad that doesn't have a name or phone number, I get really cranky, and in most instances, I don't apply. And then one recruiter, internal recruiter from a top 5 listed company in Australia, a mining company, wrote, oh, it's all very well for you, Richard, to, criticize internal recruitment. I'm currently recruiting 40 different vacancies, and with all of my other, expectations and requirements and meetings and so on and so forth, I just don't have time to talk to candidates. Right. So basically, that's why I don't put my name and phone number on the ad. And if you don't like it, tough luck. And so I replied back saying, look, don't take it from me. Read the comments of the 78 people or whatever it is who said because your name and phone number's there, they don't apply. Right. So companies, again, the companies who recruit well obviously recognize that they can't have one internal recruiter trying to run 40 different assignments at once. They need to give them the time and the bandwidth to do their job properly, which definitely should include putting their name and phone number on an ad.
That's really interesting stuff. And so I think it's just here in the United States. It might be global. There's what is it? SHRM, the Society of Human Resources and Management. They did a study, and they found, or the average cost in 2023 for companies recruitment process is $3,000 to $5,000. So if you think about, that person that replied to you that had the 40 vacancies, right? That's a extensive amount of money the company is wasting just to repeat the process because they don't get good candidates, So I mean that they hire 40 people, and 5 of them stay, 5 of them are meh, but they stay. So now you've just corrupted your culture because you hired 5 or 10 meh candidates, and then the rest of them leave, and you got to repeat the process over again, and it's just costing your company more and more money. the ultimate finding of the SHRM is that recruitment and onboarding and new hire training is one of the most expensive processes companies go through. It's insane.
Oh, for sure. Look, and I think that, if they're saying average cost of hire is $3,000 to $5,000, I think that is, that might be the actual physical cost. But when you think about it, okay, let's talk about cost of poor hire in a moment, but cost of hire, okay, so you've got a hiring manager who's distracted from doing their day job because they've got to brief the recruiters and attend the interviews and, be part of that hiring process. So their time costs way more than $3,000 to $5,000, and they don't like doing it, right? So, it might be that you say, okay, we've got a recruiter that costs us $100,000 a year, an internal recruiter, and they recruit 20 jobs a year. So therefore, that means our cost to hire is $5,000 per job. Well, that's looking at it from a very limited perspective. Then, if you talk about cost of poor hire, which you were talking about, Stephen, what is the damage to the culture through a poor hire? What is the potential loss of other employees because they either don't culturally fit with this new person, or they look at that person and go, God, look at the rubbish that my employer's recruited. If that's the quality of standard here now, I'm going to leave. There's the cost of the induction process and letting. Cost of poor hire, I would suggest for a mid-level leadership upwards, it probably is about 1.5 times minimum their annual salary. So if you employ somebody on $200,000 and they don't work out and you have to terminate them, that is probably a $300,000 expense, let alone the cost of hiring again. So it's poor hire is extraordinarily expensive. And if we go back to just this example, they don't put their name and phone number on the ad. So the good people, they're not talking. They're also not headhunting. Good candidates are not actively looking for a job. They're sitting in a job. They're pretty comfortable. They like their boss. They're being relatively well paid. They're not actively looking for a job. But if the right opportunity was presented to them, they'd go, oh, wow, actually, that looks really exciting. I'd like to pursue that. Internal recruitment can't headhunt. Why can't they headhunt? Because they need to immediately say if they reach out to the person, they have to say, oh, hi, I'm Dave. I'm the recruiter at Apple. They have to disclose who they're with. So they can't maintain confidentiality. And quite frankly, if you've got 40 jobs on, you just don't have any time to headhunt anyway. So instead, they produce these mediocre shortlists, and their internal client, the hiring manager, says, oh, gee, the standard of these candidates isn't very good. And they go, oh, sorry, boss, it's a war for talent.
Which, you already talked about, you wrote your book, Winning the War on Talent. I think it's fairly safe to say that this book was very much a passion piece for you, was it not?
Well, I think I believe that employers should be able to recruit the majority of roles for their business themselves. And so the reason that I wrote this book was because I wanted to educate employers that if you're going to recruit, if your greatest asset is your people, if your greatest competitive advantage is building and retaining an excellent team, then you want to know how to do it properly. And so I wanted to write a very practical book that, as you can see already from this short conversation, I'm a very straight shooter, right? So I just say it how it is, and I give very clear, easy to implement things that people can do to have far greater success. Now, there are times when they will think we need the support of a specialist headhunter for those few roles that require that. And I'm hoping, of course, by paying it forward, that by giving people this beautiful book and educating them and so on and so forth, for those opportunities, they go, well, you know what? Richard was really helpful. Hey, Richard, can you recruit this role for us? So it's, you know, I'm investing in my future karma.
Love it. Well, you always invest in your future karma. Oh man, 100%. But so what are the key things employers are going to learn? Obviously, I don't want you to give away the farm. They need to go get your book. But what are some of the key aspects you cover in your book that they're going to learn?
Well, essentially, it's right from how do you build your brand as an employer of choice? How do you brief properly? How do you interview properly? How do you shortlist properly? How do you make an offer properly? How do you deal with counter offers properly? How do you induct and onboard properly? That is the first half. That is so it's attracting and retaining top performers. So that's the attraction piece. In the retention piece, leadership is challenging, and I know, Stephen, you consult and coach in this space, so I'm sure you would agree with me, although perhaps we might use a somewhat different language. To me, great leadership is being able to balance love and accountability. If you have a team and you love them too much, but there's not enough accountability, they become soft and they don't perform, and your business won't achieve its full potential. If you have a team and you place too much accountability on them through hard KPIs and, rigid position descriptions, etc., then your team can become brittle and either become very self-interested or exit. So in order to really have a team that is both performing excellently and wants to be retained, it's finding that that point of the appropriate amount of love and accountability. Once again, I think there's a lot of management books and there's a lot of academic type literature around it. But from a very practical point of view, I talk about some simple things. So one simple thing that somebody taught to me years ago, which I thought was fantastic, is to say to each member in your team, so I have a lady who works for me, just pick a name, any name, Sarah. So I would say to Sarah, at least once a year, if not more frequently, look, Sarah, you have options. You could go and work for other people, and yet you've chosen to work here for me. Why do you love working for me? Give me 3 reasons that you love working here. And the interesting thing is, each person will give 3 different reasons. So one might say, I love the clients, I love the variety, I love the flexibility, I love the remuneration, I love the team, I love whatever it is for them. If you ask them, what do you want or what do you love? And what they say is deliverable, then it's my responsibility to continue to deliver to Sarah the things that she loves. Likewise, Joe in my team might want completely different things. And so once again, I need to give her what she needs, but there must be reciprocity. For me to give them what they need, they have to give me what I need, which is a profitable, performance-orientated business that is achieving its full potential. Again, that is a very simple tool. And yet I would suggest 99.97% of leaders would not know the answer to that question because they've never asked it. And so as a result, somebody leaves or they underperform and they go, oh, God, I don't know what was wrong with Sarah. I thought she was really happy and she's just resigned. Well, retention is about communication, and it's about having an explicit understanding about reciprocity. You want this from me. I want this from you. Can we make that happen together? Yes, we can. Awesome.
It's There's we could do an entire podcast just on that.
We should.
We should definitely. And so I mean, so the first thing I want to point out is people, there might be some executives listening and they're like rolling their eyes at what you just said and like, easy to say, hard to practice. Um, I just want to point out that my organization's built on that rock, as I'm sure yours is as well. Like we are two examples that it is possible you can do it. Yes, the bigger you are, the harder it gets, but that's okay. That's the curse of scaling, I guess, is it gets harder to lead once your teams get bigger. But, when you train your leadership teams properly, when you train your leaders properly, they're going to do this for you. You don't have to do it all yourself. So, I mean, like you said, like, if the CEO is setting the example by asking those questions, and then the people under the CEO are like, oh, well, that's a good question. I'm going to go ask my charges that question. And then it's a trickle down effect. And that's why I say, if you want culture change in your organization, it starts with the CEO. It starts at the top.
Of course. And what I would say, two things to that is that one, the person rolling their eyes, easy to say, hard to do. I reckon it's a bit easier than having to replace a mission critical person who leaves your business and you didn't know why or that they were going to leave. So to me,
Good
it's
point.
I'm a lazy person. Fundamentally, I look for the path of least resistance. I would rather ask the question up front than deal with the consequences of not asking it. The second thing is absolutely it starts at the top, but it shouldn't just be. Now, there's a lot more to my framework than just this one question. It's about building a whole performance-based culture based on current reality and preferred reality. And there's a lot of stuff that we could really get into. But as you say, it takes some time. But fundamentally, as a CEO, okay, I'm asking my direct reports, what are the reasons that you love to work for me? And I choose the word love very, very importantly, because you want people to love working for you. If they don't love working for you, then either you create a situation that they do love working for you or you need to exit them. All right. So it's not, well, why do you could work elsewhere. Why do you work here? It's why do you love working here? Right. But then the CEO should be then holding their line managers to account as part of their formal role description. Okay, I expect you to ask this question of every one of your direct reports and report back to me on this every 6 months. And then they ask the same thing of their direct reports. What doesn't get measured doesn't get done. So a lot of this kind of, tree hugger, airy fairy stuff, I'm going to roll my eyes, right? You go, oh, look, I would love to do that, but I'm just too busy, putting out fires every day. So it's up to the leader to say, no, it's not if you feel like it. You have to do it. And it's not something that you can outsource or delegate to HR. You have to do it yourself. Leadership is about a heart connection and a head connection between leader and subordinate or leader and team member. It's got to be you and them. If you try and outsource this to HR, it's not going to be it's just going to be a total waste of time.
No, absolutely. No one likes HR, unfortunately. I'm sorry, HR people. It is you're necessary, but unfortunately, you're not the employees or the leaders' favorite people in the world. But you obviously
they could
know
be.
That.
They could be. And in some organizations they are. And look, I've got an HR degree. I'm a huge advocate of HR. It's interesting, a company will say our greatest asset are our people. And yet when they show their organizational chart on their website, the CEO's there, the CFO's there, the COO there, the CIO there, but often the head of HR is not there. So if HR is your biggest asset, your people are biggest, then why doesn't your head of HR have a seat at the table? A lot of very senior HR people get pissed off. Oh, it's not fair. I don't have a seat at the table. Well, you have to deserve to have one. You have to be seen as somebody who is strategically adding value and to enable the business to achieve its full potential. A lot of HR people, and there are definitely HR people who do that, and they are awesome. A lot of people in HR, see their role as just, payroll and EBAs and dealing with unfair dismissals, rather than thinking about their strategic investment into the overall success of the company.
Well, let me toss this question at you, Richard, because I have some friends. Actually, I have several people that I work with very closely that are like you, HR. They have the HR degree. They've worked in HR their entire careers. They love HR, but they'll be the first to attest. One of the biggest problems you face in HR is all the nonsensical red tape. Like just
True.
all the BS you have to, all the hoops you have to jump through just to get a menial task done. What one, why do you think companies do this to their HR staff? And two, like, can we remove it? Like, like, is it possible to take away all this nonsense, or is it a necessary evil of doing business?
Well, firstly, whilst I have an undergraduate degree in HR, I've never worked in HR.
Okay.
My background has always been working. I've worked in sales and then operational management and then in recruitment. I've never worked in a generalist HR capacity. So, and then of course, from what I understand, if anything in the US, it's even worse in Australia. The rights of employees and the absolute uh, the absolute focus now on making sure that you're not discriminating, and the way that you're terminating people, and making sure that there's equity, and dealing with the new woke left and the implications that brings into business, has caused, I think, a lot of organizations to be legitimately scared of their employees, particularly younger employees. And so I imagine as a result of that, there's a lot of people in the role of HR that are constantly having to do these things purely to cover their ass, right? And to cover the backside of the business, to make sure that they're not leaving themselves open to, being sued for harassment or unfair dismissal or whatever it might be. That is a big problem in Australia now. And from what I understand, it's even more of a problem in the US.
It is.
Particularly in tech companies. And then I suppose on the other side of the coin, if it is nonsensical red tape that is put upon the HR team by the broader business, then I think, like in any business or in any relationship, you have to push back. You have to manage up and understand, boss, that if you have an expectation that I'm going to spend 97% of my time filling in forms, obviously I'm being, I'm glossing over this, right? But, if I'm spending 97% of my time filling out forms and only 3% being productive, then this is what you get. Boss, are you happy with that? The boss says, no, I'm not happy with that, because, of course, why would they be happy with that? Well, if you want me to have a more strategic involvement in the business and deliver far greater value, get rid of the forms. Right?
Right.
Again, it's no different to any relationship. If somebody's sitting in a role in a business, it's a whole idea of what I call victor versus creator mentality. A victim versus creator. So I'm a victim. It doesn't mean people are persecuting me. It's there are things that I would like to change, but they're outside of my control, and therefore it's not my fault. I would like better behaved children, but my partner is a poor parent. I would like to, this is true for me, I would like to lose weight, but I go to so many corporate functions that, I have to, of course, eat and drink all this fancy stuff. So, as much as I'd love to lose weight, it's outside of my control. Or I would love to be a more productive HR person, but I can't, because I've got to fill out all these bloody forms all the time, right? In a space of being a victim. Instead, being in the space of being a creator, which is saying, I accept responsibility for the fact that I at least have co-created the situation, right? Responsibility, the ability to respond. So if I've co-created a situation that I don't like, then it means that I can actually create what I like. But in order to do that, I have to say to the boss, look, we need to have a real conversation here. I can't do the job that you need me to do if I have to fill out all these forms. So either you stop expecting me to do the other stuff because it's not happening regardless, or we drop the forms, or if we can't come to a reasonable compromise, leave, right? If you're in a job and it's pissing you off because all you're doing is filling out forms all day and you don't see that there's any way out, leave. Go and work somewhere else. Go and work somewhere where there's less forms. It's really not that hard.
I agree. I agree completely. It's one of my biggest pet peeves when I hear people complaining about their job. It's like, look, man, like, I get the golden handcuff syndrome, where you've kind of backed yourself into a corner where you feel like you can't leave. But again, like you're talking, and I love the way you put it, the victim versus creator mentality. I say it a little bit different, but I really love yours. You know, when we put ourselves in that victimhood mindset, we are doing nothing to service ourselves. All we're doing is giving ourselves a scapegoat. Your life is never going to improve. Your job is never going to improve. Like nothing of quality is ever going to happen as long as you stay in that headspace. So, you know, get out of it. And you know, I've coached several people on, look, you need to leave your job. You hate it that much, it's going to freaking kill you. You're going to
Yeah,
have a heart attack. At 50 years old, you're going to have a heart attack and die because of your job. I'm sorry, like they're not, jobs are not worth that, right?
that's
So
right.
you gotta you gotta get out of that mentality. And I
Yeah. And
promise you, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm a trained psychotherapist. And the thing about it, Stephen, and again, you know this just as well as I do, it's often easier for people to sit in dysfunction than to actually change. So they'll sit there and they'll complain but it's actually serving them in some way to sit in dysfunction. And that's the craziest part about it, because to somebody from the outside like you and I, it's pretty simple. If you don't like it, leave.
Mhm.
But it's obviously not that simple, because otherwise everybody would leave. So why don't they leave? Because at some level, they actually enjoy the suffering.
Then stop complaining.
Oh, it's like that situation you faced just before this podcast. It's like, dude, this is the rules of engagement. If you don't like it, don't engage.
Yeah, pound sand, bro. Don't. Why did you have to bring that back up? Now I want to get all pissed off again. Come on, bro. No, I'm kidding. I'm good. I am in a much better headspace now because
Excellent.
Richard has calmed me down and
Uh,
really carried this conversation. So we're almost out of time, Richard. I really love this conversation, though. I'm definitely going to have you back soon so we can dive deeper into some of these things we've talked about. But I want to ask, like, whenever, you know, like I said, leaving, like retiring from the military, we get approached by a lot of recruiters, or we call them headhunters. Um, Say I want to work with one. What should I look for in a recruiter?
okay, another excellent question. So I'd be interested. So when you say you're being approached by recruiters, that you're being, I'm not saying you specifically, but military people, are they being approached about specific vacancies? Like, hey, I've got a job. Are you interested? Is that what you mean?
No, it's more general. It's like, hey, I represent these companies.
Right.
Would you like to come see if you're a fit, kind of thing?
And so what happens when they say yes?
I don't know. And I honestly don't know anyone that said yes. So I have no clue.
Right. Okay, well,
Like I
I
said,
suppose.
we're pretty much told to avoid them. So
Well, what's that old saying? Nothing ventured, nothing gained, right? So, maybe it would be worth going and have a conversation that it might be legitimate and it might be awesome. I don't know. In the recruitment industry, there are, again, talking Australia, but I'm sure it'll be very similar in the US. There are what you call contingent recruiters. Contingent recruiters are only paid for a successful placement. What you've just described to me is largely a contingent recruiter's language. Come and see me. I've got relationships with these 5 companies or 10 companies, and they call it floating a candidate or showcasing talent. In other words, so pick a company, any company, Apple. So they go to Apple and say, hey, Apple, I've got this guy named Steven. He's awesome. Do you want to meet him? If you meet him and you like him and you hire him, Apple, you're going to pay me a big fee, right? And that's how recruitment, certainly pre-GFC, so and predominantly LinkedIn, that was how recruitment really worked. I specialized in recruiting into the construction industry. And if a senior construction person came and saw me and said, oh, look, I hate my current company, I need a new company, I'd say, well, look, I work with these 5 other companies. Let me showcase you to those 5 companies, and the one that hires you will pay me a fee. And then on the other side of the coin, there are what you call retained search firms or headhunters. That's what I am. So a company is retaining me. They are paying me to exclusively go and headhunt a person for their vacancy. So I'm not showcasing talent. I'm like an assassin, right? Who's going out to find the right person. Whereas a contingent recruiter is more like a farmer. They're farming a talent pool. Now, the thing is that traditionally I made a lot of money being a farmer, but nowadays, let's say that you did say to me, oh, Richard, one of my employers of choice is Apple. And I went to Apple and I said, hey, listen, Apple, I've got this guy, Steven, and do you want to meet him? And if you like him and you hire him, you're going to pay me $50,000 or whatever the recruitment fee is. Apple would most likely say, listen, Richard, we don't need Steven right now. And if we needed Steven, we'd go and find him ourselves. We have an internal recruitment team. We'd go and find him ourselves. So why would we be obliged to pay you 50 grand for literally just sending us a CV? So my opinion is that certainly in Australia, and I'm sure it would be the same in the US, that kind of recruitment is basically dead, right? So coming back to your question, if a recruiter approached me and said, hey, Richard, I would say, I'm happy to talk to you about any roles that you are retained to fill. Okay, because then I know it's an actual real vacancy with an actual real company and something will actually happen. Whereas if it's just come in and have a chat, I work with these 10 companies and look, I think you're awesome. What happens 9 times out of 10, the person will go and meet the recruiter, and then the recruiter will say, oh, promise the world, and then they'll never return a phone call or an email. And the candidate quite rightly will go, who the bloody hell? I went and saw John. He told me he's going to do all these things. Now he won't even give me the courtesy of returning my phone call. Yeah. So I definitely think that in your example, it would be worth going and exploring at least some of those meetings. Because if you meet with at the end of the day, recruiters said, like everybody's just trying to do the best they can. If they could do better, they would. I'm sure a recruiter doesn't want to get John in just to piss John off, right? The recruiter wants to bring the person in because they legitimately think that they could make some money from this. Otherwise, why would you bother? But again, coming back to the point, 98% of recruiters I wouldn't trust to walk my dog. If you get in front of that recruiter and you don't feel that they will appropriately represent your brand, then you need to say to them, don't represent me to Apple. Why? Because what I propose, you should go to Apple directly yourself. And the issue is that if you go to Apple directly yourself, And Apple goes, oh, but that recruiter presented Stephen, and and if we now go ahead and hire Stephen, that recruiter may think that they're deserving of a fee, and we're going to get into an argument about should we owe them a fee or not, or whatever. All too hard. Let's just not hire Stephen, right? So again, talk to the recruiter. If they have an actual vacancy that they're going to represent you for, yes. If it's a general referral, no.
I love that.
Yeah.
And see, I had no idea. I thought that's how it worked.
Right.
Like I thought like they're like, hey, this is who I got, and hey, companies, this is who I got that fits, what something you
Sure.
may want.
I'll tell you another sneaky thing that recruiters do, right? These
Okay.
contingent recruiters. So let's say that you go in and you see the recruiter, and the recruiter says, "Oh, Stephen, I think you're a great candidate. Tell me, have you got anything else going on at the moment?" "Oh, yeah, I'm actually being interviewed for the general sales manager at Apple." "Oh, you're being interviewed for that, are you, Stephen?" You go, yeah. And then you leave. The recruiter then contacts Apple and says, "Hey, Apple, I understand that you're currently recruiting a general sales manager. Can I present some other candidates?" Right? They will deliberately try and put candidates there so that you don't get the job. Because if you get the job, they don't get any money. So they will absolutely, not all recruiters are this unethical, but a lot of them are, they will try and cut your lunch. So if a recruiter ever says to you, "So listen, Stephen, have you got anything else on the go?" You go, "Yeah, I've got a few opportunities that I'm pursuing." "Oh, what are they?" "Oh, look, one of them is a general sales manager." "Oh, who's that with?" "Look, I'm not at liberty to tell you."
That's so shady, bro. That's so
Dude,
shady.
we could have another whole podcast on all the
Man.
shady things that recruiters do. That, there's a reason that recruiters have a reputation as, white shoe salespeople, as just body shoppers, right? Because a lot of recruiters are crap at their job. But then there are excellent recruiters who are retained to do a job properly. And as a candidate, you want to know and work with those people. Definitely. So to say I'm not going to talk to any recruiters is not a great decision. It's to say I'm going to be discerning as to which recruiters I want to work with. Excellent. And again, if people want my book, Uncover the Hidden Job Market, if you come to my website, you can get a copy of it for free. All you have to do is put your email address in. We'll send you a copy of it for free. And anybody who's listening to this podcast who is looking for a job or knows somebody for a job, anybody in the military, anybody, come and get my book for free. All of this stuff we've talked about in relation to finding jobs is all there, and I give it away because I want to be of service.
I love that. And of course, everyone knows I only bring you the best. So all my guests are vetted prior to this recording to make sure that I am bringing you quality content, and I don't just let any Joe Schmo that claims they're good on podcasts on my show, because I'm in control of who comes on my freaking show. And if y'all are wondering, that's what's got me all pissed off, is somebody got mad at me because of the process it takes to get on my show. And we got in an argument online and keyboard warrior type stuff. It's stupid. I know I shouldn't be mad. And my wife is like, "Steven, calm down. Like, there's no reason to be upset." And I'm like, "You look at the way this dude is talking." Anyway, 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 but yeah, so y'all know I only bring you quality people, people that I trust, and people that I think genuinely are trying to serve this world and make it a better place, which I definitely think Richard is. I believe that 100% with my heart. Of course, he's giving away his masterpiece, giving it away for free. Just all it costs is an email address. If you're a service member, highly recommend you get it. I don't care if you're retiring or just doing foreign out. You got to have a plan. Leaving the military is a hard thing to do. I'm sure it's just as hard, if not harder, in Australia as it is in the United States. You got to be prepared. So if you're a service member, 100% get this book, and be better prepared for when you exit the military. Real quick, Richard, go ahead and tell people how they can find you, get a hold of you, get your book, all that stuff.
Okay, so obviously I'm on LinkedIn. If you send me a LinkedIn connection request and I don't accept it, it's not because I don't like you. It's because LinkedIn has a maximum of 30,000 connections, and I've been sitting up around 30,000 for a long time now. So I just don't have capacity to take on hundreds. But you can certainly message me through LinkedIn. You can find my website, Arate Executive, and you can message me through that. As Stephen said, you can get a free copy. It's a PDF copy. If you want a physical copy of the book, Amazon, etc., etc. The new book, Winning the War for Talent, will be out hopefully by May. Been a couple of delays there. And I have my own podcast, the Arate podcast, where I interview CEOs and chairs and business owners about their careers. So I'd love to connect with you. And I was actually born in Canada. I haven't been back there for a long time, but my kids are absolutely desperate for me to take them to the US this year. So I will, if I'm in your neck of the woods, Stephen, I'll make sure that I let you know, and we can have a beer and share war stories. Yours will be much more interesting than mine, I'm sure.
100%, brother. Come in May, man. We got the Indianapolis 500, one of the greatest races in the world. I would be happy to give you a tour of my great city and let you experience such an amazing, amazing event. It's Indiana's pride and joy for a reason, man. It's so much fun. But yeah, definitely hit me up. I would love that 100%. Of course, everybody, you know the deal. I'm going to have all of Richard's links down below in the show notes and in the description. So make sure you scroll down, go give him tons and tons of love. Definitely get that free PDF copy of his book. Best part about PDFs is you just get e-reader, and boom, then you can listen. You got a built-in audiobook as well. So 100% go grab that. And once you're done giving him some love, come over to renownedleadership.com. Give me tons of love. Just click the button, talk to a coach in the top middle of your screen. You can make a one-on-one appointment with me, personally, no one else, just me. And we'll chat for an hour or so and see what you got going on and see how we can help each other. So I absolutely have loved this conversation, Richard. Like I said, 100%, I'm going to have you back because we got much more we need to talk about. Before I let you go, you know the deal. My guests get the final word of wisdom. And the final question is, what does leading like a champion mean to you?
Being humility. I think humility is probably the word that would jump first into my mind. I think the best leaders are humble. They understand that their success has been on the shoulders of others, and they come at leadership from a service mentality. How can I best serve my people in order for them to best serve our clients or our customers so that we can all achieve our full potential together?
I absolutely love that answer. Again, we could do an entire podcast just on that answer of what it means to be a servant leader and understanding that without your people, you're never going to see your family. You're never going to sleep. You're never going to eat. Your people are literally your lifeblood, and you need to treat them like they're your blood, because they are, and, figuratively speaking, of course. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up. Richard, again, my brother, thank you so much for giving me your time. I can't wait to talk to you again. I promise I'll be in a better mood next time. There will be no internet drama the next time you're on the show, brother.
I am excited to continue the conversation and also to reciprocate, Stephen, and have you on my podcast sometime soon. So thanks very much. It's been a great opportunity, and I wish you a fantastic evening.
Yeah, likewise, brother. All right, everybody. So that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode of the Renowned Leadership Podcast. I will see you all next week. Same bad time, same bad channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff so you get notified every time an episode comes out every single week. Same time. It's like, I know you're not idiots. You can figure out. But still, like, subscribe, helps the algorithm. And thanks for bearing with me in my pissy mood. I apologize for that. I apologize for cursing. I'm in a really foul mood. Like tons of people have had to hear about it. Anyway, so that's going to wrap it up, guys. I will see you all next week. In the meantime, never forget, lead like a champion. Goodbye, guys.